Okay, and we're live.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Wendy Bond, Director of Education for LACME USA, and today is our first Friday Facebook Live for April. So what I've done with my friend Heidi is we pre-lightened her hair about a week ago. I did tone it with one of our pearl toners, and then what you see, this beautiful color that's on the ends now, is actually just one application of our Technia Ultra Reds. So she lifted up to pale blonde, toned her to with a pearl, because many times when you're trying to create a pink tone, you're better off actually toning the hair before you apply your pink, because you think, oh well, the hair's pale yellow, the pink will read well, but it'll give you more of a coral, whereas I was trying to create more of a mauvey pink. So I went ahead and pre-lightened her. She had a little bit of gold left on her end. She had some variation. It wasn't the cleanest bleach application that you've ever gotten, but she got overall light, toned her with the pearl. Then yesterday did one application with the Technia Ultra. So much fun. So today what I'm doing, I have this raspberry berry inspired theme. And what I've done is I put a shadow root on. Our formula's on the back using our gloss color, our 750, which is a cool red tone with an 822 with an 8 violet violet. And I think one of the things that inspired me about this look and this haircut is I'm very into these kind of wiggy textures right now. In fact, even Heidi yesterday, she was so cute. She's like, it looks like a wig. I feel so anime. So I was like, great. So, when we're finishing it, we're kind of okay with the rougher texture, with the kickier texture. And if you can look, I went ahead and did the shadow root everywhere with this combination of red and violet, the 8 being the lighter tone so that it's going to sheer out the red a little bit. And I dragged that down and through, and then as I've worked my way around, I'm using 2 different colors now. And one thing I would say that we can learn as stylists and hair colorists is sometimes it's not what we color, it's what we don't color. So what I'm doing is clipping the hair up, and I'm going to be working around the head, and I'm going to be using 2 different shades of red. I'm using 750, which is just a level 7 in gloss, cooler red tone. And I'm going to be using Red Motion, which is one of our favorite intense red colors. So I can show you real quick before I start. So I have Red Motion 99 with some clear. The formula's on the board. And then I have our gloss colors. I have our 822, which is part of her base color, and I have 750, which is the other part of the base color. So this was her root color, was the 822, 750 equal parts. Now for her mid shaft, I have just 750 with some clear. This will sheer out into kind of a duller, softer pink. And then the 99 will be a very, very bright pink with a little bit of a corally texture. And then at the very end, I'm going to do an overlay with the 95, which is probably one of my favorite shades. It gives you more of a mauvey pink with clear at the sink. So when I'm working in this kind of 360 format, working around the head, you're going to notice that I deliberately leave pieces out. And I'm doing that because I know I'm going to do an overlay. And what I would say is that it's really nice to, like I said, think about what you don't want to color and what you do want to color. I'm using one of these little boards. I can show you the brand that they are made from. They're really nice because they're super, super light. And they just, they're very easy to hold, and you can turn them. They're nice and long. So I'm going to be going through and just sort of picking up where I want to see that darker kind of contrast using the end of my comb, knowing that I'm going to go ahead and saturate this part, but leave some gaps so that I get these variations in tones. And wherever I'm not covering is going to go ahead and, when I do that overlay at the sink, is going to get that really beautiful wash of color. So just kind of moving around the head, I think a lot of times, we really force ourselves to work too much by a pattern instead of working just visually. So I feel like learning to work visually, learning to work just with where you want to see the color being applied rather than some set formula, a lot of times is very, very helpful. So I'm going to just turn Heidi as I go. I'm going to kind of do a few sections on the other side. I've already gotten a head start on this side. And again, it's amazing how much deposit we got from one application of Technia Ultras. The Technia Ultras are really a must-have for anybody who either does fantasy color, wants to be able to offer a temporary fantasy color. I had already done some of my underside of her hair with this like sort of pattern. And the inspiration for this was like looking at raspberries and spring berries, and especially raspberries, because they have that like darker kind of underneath, and then the surface is very light and sheer and kind of has this like almost like fuzzy quality. So I was thinking the one that's the cooler, sort of more muted color will give me the fuzzy kind of raspberry feel. The intense sort of coral one is going to give me like that brighter hidden feel. But then when I go ahead and do the pink overlay at the end, it's going to marry everything together. And you know, it's sort of like, it's almost like the shape of the raspberry, the texture of the raspberry is what gives you that feel that you really think it's multiple colors, but the truth is it's pretty close to all being the same color. It's the texture and the shape. And what I'm also trying to do with her hair is, because it is very, very dense, like she has a tremendous amount of hair, and we all know that when you lighten hair, you know, it gets even denser. So I'm trying to do something that just will visually give her some nice movement, and just kind of free painting as I skip along different sections. I'm just sort of working with a section that's comfortable to me. But I deliberately am going to be leaving some hair out, so I'm not trying to do every single section. I'm just trying to comb it enough to see where the hair is going to lay, trying not to get my my root color too disturbed. And don't feel like you have to start in any particular pattern, you know? You can start wherever you feel like it. I can start right here in the back. I like using this little board to go ahead and sort of place the hair on, because I feel like it gives me a nice way to kind of push the color through so I can really saturate it. I did put Iplex in all of our colors. You know, Iplex is an incredible bond builder as well as a restorative treatment and anti-aging treatment. So if you've aged the hair through chemicals, through stress, through anything else, Iplex is just like a magic bullet, which is going to really strengthen and restore the hair from the very first application. Also, when you're doing fantasy colors, the keratin in Iplex, because it has two types of patented keratin, actually helps with color uptake, and it helps with color longevity. So as you see, I'm going to kind of go through, I'm kind of looking, like, where do I want a brighter piece? And I can remember that all the places that I'm leaving uncovered are actually going to be the most pink. So I always try to think about, I'm doing that pink overlay, which is almost going to be like bubblegum kind of neon pink. So anywhere that you see uncovered is actually going to be that pop. So you sort of want to think of your color in three-dimensional. I'm working around the head and, you know, thinking of it as in light, medium, and dark. So I've got my shadow root is going to give me the most depth. My softer red is probably going to be second. The coral would be third. But the overlay, the uncolored hair, the hair that I'm actually choosing to do at the last minute at the sink, will be the brightest parts of the hair, because I'm keeping it the lightest. So I think that when you work visually and are technical about your formulas, you actually get probably the best outcome with the least amount of work, because that really is my thing, is like, how can I work quickly and smart without sort of working too hard? So if anybody has any questions they want to ask about Heidi's hair, that would be great, but maybe we have a quiet group this morning.
So we have Jamie Miller here, who said she'll be seeing you soon for the color clinic.
Yes. In just a day or two. That's going to be fun.
We have a shout out from Amy, who's in Nebraska.
That is nice. Hey, Amy. Yeah, the color clinic that we're doing this weekend is a really fun class. It's a lot to do with Lakme color and Lakme formulation, but we also just talk about, like, not just the technical law of color, but how colors kind of live together, how they live in the hair, how you build your tones, especially in corrective color situations, or certain types of gray coverage where you can build in different tones by how you're layering the color. So I do feel like, you know, I'm going to be able to move through the head pretty quickly. The overlay is what I'm really going to have fun with at the very end. But I really am sort of looking like, seeing like dark, light, dark, darker, lighter. So I'm kind of going to be moving around, kind of deciding where I want to place the color visually, as opposed to like working with a really strict pattern. And I think the other reason this is important is because whether I was doing this with somebody who had some type of gray coverage and I'm doing some kind of painting, I could be doing the same type of process. I think we realize we all have so many clients that get some type of root touch-up. And especially with Heidi's hair being very dense, I wanted that shadow root, and I wanted to be able to really keep that. That was why I was going ahead and didn't want to work with a real rigid section, because I wanted to go ahead and be able to get that shadow root on. Oops, letting my pink on top of my pink.
Sarah Nielsen said she loves this color, and it's a fun color.
Sarah is like one of my favorites for, like, I keep telling her she should do her own YouTube video just highlighting her hair, because every time I see her, she's got a different color, different shampoo, different something. I'm like, what did you use on your hair? And she's like, I just used the Ultra shampoo. And I'm like, you did? And I'm like, you should do some kind of live selfie of you doing your hair in your bathroom, because it looks so great every single time I see her, and her hair never looks the same twice.
And Amy said she loves the depth of the root.
Yeah, I think that the Violet and the 822 and the 750 I do a lot of. And I feel like we all know that when people talk about rose gold, it could mean anything from like a mauve to a coral to a pink. And I feel like, to me, it kind of falls into that pinky, mauvey category that just looks very nice, looks very kind of character, like Maid of the Mist kind of fantasy character. So I'm just kind of loosely sectioning, trying to keep my hands kind of clean as I move around. And I'm really not bothered, you know, I styled the hair first. So what I would say when you're doing these kind of things, it's important to either flat iron, blow dry, or if your client's hair comes in decent shape, then go ahead and, you know, do their hair right then. That's part of what you're trying to avoid too. It's a little bit like when you're working on curly hair, where you're going to work with the hair the way it's going to fall and the way the client's living in their hair. So that's why you want to go ahead and, you know, not mess with it too much. You know, when I put the shadow root on, I tried to leave it as much in the way that Heidi's going to wear it. And then I'm just working around, letting the hair kind of fall where it wants to. And again, deliberately leaving those open spaces, which are going to be my brightest color, or my funnest sort of pink color. Yeah, gloss is really such an amazing product to use to create fantasy color with, because of the jojoba oil, because it is so conditioning. It takes really well, it takes really evenly, and it's incredibly durable. So it wears really well on the hair.
Amy wants to know if you have any tips for longevity of fashion tones.
You know, I really think Iplex is such a huge part of that. So when your clients, if you're creating fashion color and you can add Iplex to your formula, the fact that we're one of the only companies that has a bond builder that actually has keratin in it really helps extend that fashion color. I see such a big difference when I use Iplex. And then the other thing is the clients can also purchase step 3, which has the 2 types of keratin in it to take home and maintain their hair with. I think that's probably my biggest tip or trick. And then also, of course, just like trying to kind of cocktail the proper Ultra shampoo or conditioner with that, so that they can have, you know, something that they can easily maintain on their own at home. So selling them, in Heidi's case, you know, we will send her home with the red, but I've also had her buy the Color Stay. And what that'll do is she'll actually mix a little bit of the red with the Color Stay regular, so that she can dilute it a little bit and have more of a sheer pink in her refreshing shampoo or conditioner. So, you know, clients that like fashion colors are almost always up to kind of color their own hair. So when you sell them the Ultras, you're giving them a way to kind of play like a kitchen hairdresser at home, and I think they really embrace that. So again, I'm looking, and these lighter pieces are there deliberately to give you that like burst of color. Some of you have worked with me a lot will hear me say that I think that when you think of color placement, it's really good to think in like black and white. Like, I'm a big fan of black and white photography. I'm a big fan of black and white movies. So it's almost like if you just think of your tones as light, medium, and dark, and don't think about them being like red or violet, like what is the darkest color I'm using? Where is that going to draw the eye to? Or what is that going to do to my shape? What is the lightest color I'm using? What's that going to do to my shape? You'll really find that placing color is much easier, and I think that you get the results you want. So again, dark, medium, bright, and then these whiter areas that I'm going to leave, some of them, will be the brightest once they have their overlay on. This was the other funny fact. I was talking to Lexi, who does our social media, about trying to dye Easter eggs, and I'm like, I bet we could use Technia to dye Easter eggs. But then we were trying to decide if that would be too creepy. But I actually thought it would be kind of funny because, you know, they are direct dyes, they are natural dyes, and I'm like, I don't think that's that creepy. I don't know, you guys will have to let me know what you think.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think about dyeing Easter eggs with Technia Ultras in the comments, and maybe we'll share some fun surprises on Easter.
And I think too, you know, the other way you could look at using this technique is if you had a client who just had sort of medium, like a level 7 blonde hair, and you were looking to do something besides a regular highlight, you know, you could do something like this, and I wouldn't try to sell it as a balayage or something. I would sell it as something where you're just going to give her like a shimmer or a glimmer, maybe go through and lighten her hair, you know, like 2 levels, and then do some kind of overlay on top of it, almost like a movable shine line. You know, I'm really loving the shag cuts that have come back in style, but I feel like when you have that really shaggy haircut, or that very, very layered haircut, after so many years of having super long kind of do-nothing layers, you know, we kind of have to figure out how to place our color. So I feel like when you have that client with the shaggy hair who wants something younger and hipper and doesn't want just traditional foils, going on and sort of painting in some type of hand-painted either highlight that you can go back and then play around with, or contrast into their hair. And most of the time with this kind of look, if you're doing just bleach, I would assume that you're going to want to do an overlay of some type of gloss. I would never tell you to just randomly paint bleach on someone's hair and not do anything else. So I think of it as, you know, that's a nice way to add movement. You're not trying to get full-on highlights, you're just trying to get a little bit of a bump or sweep or swish. Oops, sorry, Heidi. A bump or sweep or swish. So in this case, I've just stuck my board under her bangs. Everybody knows I love a good bang. So what I'm doing is I'm painting some pieces. This is this darker color. It's not quite as dark as the base, but it's that 750. It's just a 7 that's been sheared out. And I'm going to do a little bit of a darker color right there, so that the rest of her bangs have a little bit to live on. And just kind of like scooch this a little bit to the side. And now I'm going to kind of alternate in with my brighter kind of bright kind of coral red pieces. And again, just working very lightly, kind of lifting the hair up each section. It's really nice when you don't feel the need to get every single piece of hair covered. But again, the reason I can get away with that is because I know I'm going to do the overlay. So if you think of an overlay as almost like a reverse color, a reverse fill. So I'm building one tone, and then after I'm done, I'm going to marry everything together with my final tone. It's what allows you to really have a lot of fun. And especially when I get to the final part, the overlay at the end, I can check it out and be like, how much clear do I want to use? Do I want to use a lot of clear? Do I want to use a little bit of clear? You know, and that's something that you really can't determine till the very end. And the other day I was at a class and somebody had mentioned, you know, when do you decide to fill or not? And I'm like, you know, I kind of decide to fill at the last minute sometimes, you know, like after I know what I'm going to do with the client. So you don't always have to decide super duper in advance. You can go ahead and do your highlights, do whatever you're doing, do your contrasting colors, and then decide if you're at a point where once you've shampooed it off, what do I want to enhance or build on what I've already put in the hair. So I have this habit of sort of walking around my clients, turning my clients a lot. I kind of call it like a 360 color application, because I realize like sometimes when we're coloring, we tend to stand in one place or work in one place and then turn the client, whereas I'm constantly kind of turning the client around as I go to kind of get that feeling of like even application, even saturation. Am I sort of seeing what's really there? What shape is her head? What shape is the color? So I just feel like it gives you a nice way to work, and I think you tend to work more efficiently, at least for me when I work this way.
Going back to your Technia Ultra Easter egg idea, Amy said she never has food coloring, so she might actually try using Technia Ultra on Easter eggs.
She'll have to send us her pictures because, you know, it's probably much easier than using. And I was thinking, Amy, that you could even dilute them a little bit with just like some warm water, and I have a feeling they would work really well. And you could enjoy your eggs and know they were safe to eat. So we're getting kind of moving along, getting to this close to the end. I mean, I am going to keep filling in these little gaps. I wanted to show you really quick. It's funny, these little highlights, this manufacturer makes the best boards. They make some really good, fun papers. It's incredibly inexpensive. They come in, you get like 2 little boards in a pack for, I don't know, not very much. And I like the shape of the boards. I like the fact that the boards are really light and easy to hold, you know, so you're not, you know, holding on to something very heavy. So I think anybody who hasn't tried them really should. We sell them at De Pasquale, so you can probably get them online. And they make some interesting kind of papers. They make these sort of shiny, shiny one side, dull the other side papers, which are great for alternative to balayage if you're trying to just put something in the hair, you know, to separate color, but you don't want to use foil and you don't necessarily want to use a cling film. I find it really, really nice. And I think too, like using the board allows you to keep your hands more clean. So if you notice, like as I'm working, my hands have stayed relatively clean when I'm picking up Heidi's hair. It also allows me to really saturate the hair as I move through.
What's the name of the brand again? They're called?
They're just called Highlights. So, oh yeah, it's highlights. I mean, it's interesting. Like I said, we have them at our manufacturers or at our distributorship, and they do sell these papers which are really nice. That come in long and short papers, which are great to use for different types of color applications. It's definitely one of my preferred products. So again, just kind of mushing that last little bit in, kind of working around the head. I was joking with Heidi because she's going to Great Adventures tomorrow. So I'm like, your hair's gonna look so good when you're on the roller coaster. So even when you're seeing this intense, when I wash it off, it'll be more of a rosy kind of pink because I did add clear to it. You know, but it is a high intensity color. So again, it's just something to kind of fool around with. And now I'm just going to fill in that one little section, and then I think I'm kind of done. And what I can see here too is like, you know, wherever it's falling, if I'm seeing a lot of light, then I'm going to probably add a little more depth, but keep some of those lighter pieces. So again, it's just kind of very visual, where you want to see it, what tone you want to build, but I'm definitely deliberately happy to leave out some of those very, very pre-lightened pieces.
And Amy wants to know if you'll rinse all the color out before you do your overlay.
Very good question, Amy. Yes, I will. I'm going to rinse all the color out before I do my overlay, and the only thing I would say about that is you just have to pick a, you could choose not to, but in this case, that 9.5 that I'm using in Red Motion, which is a intense red with kind of a mahogany red behind it, will build on any of these shades, so it's not going to interfere. So I tend to try to work pretty easily, and that I'm going to try and build overlays, or I tend to pick colors that will complement the colors I'm putting over, so I don't have to stop and think about it too much. So I think this is going to be my last piece. And then this won't take too long to process because, you know, it's gloss color. So just because of the application and how we're moving it on, I mean, I'll probably end up leaving it on 25 to 30 minutes max. I mean, it could come off as quickly as 20, you know, but I am going to try to get, you know, as much deposit as I can on Heidi's hair. I'll just kind of look at these last little sections as I go, probably paint a few more pieces on. But I think you guys get the idea of how this color is gonna live and kind of work in her hair. So yeah, so this is like our very wiggy pink color for spring. So I think when you see the finish, you're gonna really enjoy it, and we'll be able to share that with you later today.